My neighbor complained that my new fence blocked her view. Weeks later, I came home to find it painted with vile graffiti. I knocked on her door. She said, "Consider it neighborhood art." That night I woke to smoke. My fence was on fire. When the firefighters came, one of them handed me a lighter with my name scratched off. Inside her trash was, "I moved to Eugene, Oregon, about 6 months ago." After a drawn-out, soul-crushing divorce that drained both my bank account and my trust in people, I needed a fresh start. I wasn't looking for excitement. I just wanted peace. A place where I could drink my coffee in the morning without hearing anyone yelling through the walls. I found a modest single-story house on the edge of town. It wasn't anything fancy, 1970s build, old kitchen tiles, some siding damage, but it had a big yard, no HOA, and it backed up to a row of trees. The privacy was what sold me. I imagined finally having space to breathe. No more shared walls, no more drama. Just quiet. But of course, quiet didn't last. About 2 weeks after moving in, I started putting in a privacy fence. I didn't hire a big company. Just me, a guy named Marco I found on Craigslist, and some lumber from Home Depot. It took us 4 days, working around my job schedule. I built it on my property line. I even double-checked with the city about setbacks. It was legal in every way. Then came Sharon. She lives in the house directly behind mine. Late 50s, lives alone, real sharp eyes and sharper tone. I'd only met her once before. She was outside pulling weeds when I moved in, and when I waved at her, she didn't wave back. Just stared. On the second day of the fence project, she came around and watched for a while. Said nothing. Just stood at the edge of her yard, arms crossed. When we finished, she showed up at my front door and knocked 3 times fast. I opened. She didn't introduce herself. She said, "That fence, who told you could put it up?" I told her I had permits and it was on my land. I even showed her the document, just to shut it down right there. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "You've ruined my view." I didn't even know what to say. I wanted to laugh, but her tone made it clear she wasn't joking. "You know," she added, "people like you move in and think you can change everything. Some of us have lived here for decades." I stayed calm. I said, "I'm just trying to get some privacy." She muttered something I didn't catch and walked away. I figured that was the end of it. A few weeks passed. Nothing happened, but I noticed little things. Trash would appear near my fence. A dog barking right when I stepped outside. One time I found broken glass near the base of my driveway. I wasn't sure if it was her, but I started getting this gut feeling. Then one Thursday afternoon, I came back from the grocery store. I remember I had frozen stuff in the trunk. I walked around to the backyard first just to take a look at the progress on my garden boxes. That's when I saw the fence. Vile graffiti was sprayed across 3 panels. Red, black, and white paint. Slurs. Ugly messages. A swastika. The words, "Narc trash," and "Go back to Cali, even though I'm from Spokane," were written in big letters. I stood there with 2 bags of groceries in my hand, staring at it, trying to understand why someone would go this far. I called the non-emergency police line. They sent a patrol car. The officer took a few photos, asked me if I had cameras, I didn't at the time, and said I could file a report. That's it. I wasn't going to let it slide. I walked straight over to Sharon's house. Knocked. She opened the door like she'd been expecting me. I didn't accuse her. I just asked, "Did you see who did this to my fence?" She smirked. Not smiled, smirked. She looked over my shoulder at the spray paint like she was proud of it, and said, "Consider it neighborhood art." Then she shut the door in my face. That night I couldn't sleep. I was so angry I felt sick. I stayed up watching TV with the volume low, drinking 1 too many beers. Around 2 a.m. I heard this weird popping noise, like firecrackers. Then I saw the orange glow out my bedroom window. My heart dropped. I ran outside barefoot. The fence was burning. A real fire. Not a small little blaze, this thing was climbing. 2 full panels were already gone, and the flames were licking the side of my shed. I grabbed my hose and sprayed like hell, coughing from the smoke. My neighbor on the other side came out and called 911. The firefighters got there fast. They put out the fire before it reached the house, but the fence was totaled. One of them came over and handed me something they found near the base. It was a lighter. A cheap red plastic lighter. Looked like the kind you buy at a gas station counter. My name, Matt, had been scratched into the side at some point, but someone had tried to scratch it off. You could still read it if you tilted it right. I hadn't seen that lighter in weeks. It went missing from my back patio. That's when it hit me, this wasn't just graffiti. Someone wanted to scare me. Someone wanted to destroy something I built. Someone wanted me gone. I called the police again. This time it was arson. They sent someone to investigate. Took a report. Said they'd test the lighter for prints but couldn't make any promises. I knew what that meant. The next morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. I dug through Sharon's trash. Trash pickup was the next day, so the bins were full. I waited until she left around 11 a.m. She drives a gray Subaru and takes forever to back out of the driveway. I wore gloves. I only looked through the top bags. Inside I found a used roll of painter's tape, a crumpled receipt from a hardware store, 2 spray paint cans, 1 black, 1 red, and a pair of thick rubber gloves. The receipt had her name printed on it, Sharon D. Meeks. She used her store rewards card. Items listed: 2 cans black spray paint, 1 can red spray paint, 1 pack disposable lighters, rubber gloves. Date: 2 days before my fence got tagged. I didn't take anything. I took photos. Everything. The receipt, the gloves, the trash bag serial number. I documented the entire thing. I also pulled the footage from my Ring camera. It didn't catch the fire, but it showed someone walking by the back gate around 1:43 a.m., less than 20 minutes before the fire started. The person had a limp. Sharon had a bad right knee. It was her gait. I compiled everything into a folder and took it to the police station myself. This time, the officer took it seriously. Said they'd send someone out again. I didn't stop there. I found out Sharon had 2 open citations with the city, 1 for a backyard burn without a permit, and 1 for lawn code violations. I filed a new complaint, added photos of the graffiti and fire damage, and cited unsafe behavior. I also wrote up a post for our local next-door group. I didn't name her directly, but I included pictures of the fence and said, "I moved here for some peace. Someone didn't like my fence. Now it's been spray-painted and burned. If anyone has had issues with a certain neighbor or saw anything suspicious, message me. I'm collecting evidence." I didn't expect the flood of responses. I got over 30 messages in 24 hours. People told me Sharon had yelled at their kids for walking too close to her mailbox. Someone said she poisoned a neighbor's rose bushes. Another guy swore she let her dog crap on his lawn every morning without cleaning it up. There was a pattern. And I was going to use it. What happened next pushed everything into overdrive. A week after the fire, a detective from the arson unit came to my house. He asked more questions this time, real ones. Wanted to know where I got the pictures of the receipt, if I still had the items, I didn't, and whether I'd had other issues with Sharon. I laid it all out. I told him everything, her threats, the graffiti, the fence fire, the lighter with my scratched-off name, and the stuff I found in her trash. I even showed him the Ring footage of the figure limping past my back gate. He nodded, took notes, and said they'd be pursuing it. I asked if Sharon would be arrested. He just said, "If this keeps going the way it's going, probably." I was hopeful for a second. Maybe this would be over soon. But I should have known better. 3 nights later, I was watching TV around 9:30 when I heard what sounded like glass breaking in the backyard. I jumped up, grabbed my flashlight, and ran outside. A brick had been thrown through the side window of my shed. A brick. Wrapped around it was a piece of paper. No envelope, no signature. Just a message written in all caps. Take the hint and leave. Next time it's your house. I called the cops again. Same routine. Pictures, report, shrugged shoulders. They said they'd file it under the same case number but didn't sound optimistic. I asked if they were going to knock on Sharon's door. They said, not without evidence. That's when I realized I had to handle this differently. I had to beat Sharon at her own game. I went to the hardware store and bought 2 new Ring cameras. One for the back corner of my yard facing her property, and one hidden inside a fake birdhouse pointed at my shed and fence. Then I installed 2 motion sensor lights. Next I put up a "No trespassing" sign on every side of the property. That weekend, I paid a private investigator $500 to do a full background check on Sharon. What came back? Pure gold. Sharon had a misdemeanor charge from 15 years ago in California, vandalism. She'd keyed someone's car during a parking dispute. There was also a restraining order filed against her by a former coworker, a woman who claimed Sharon stalked her after she got a promotion Sharon thought she deserved. And best of all? Sharon was on disability for her right knee, which meant her insurance premiums were sky high, and if she was caught committing arson or vandalism, that would not just be criminal, it would cost her everything. I waited. Then, one night about a week later, around 2 a.m., my camera caught her. She snuck into my yard, limping, wearing a hoodie, holding something in her hand. She sprayed something on the fence. She didn't know about the new birdhouse cam. I got a perfect shot of her face, half lit by the floodlight when it clicked on. She bolted back over the fence when it triggered, but the damage was done. The next morning, the word, liar, was painted in red across the back of what was left of my fence. I made 10 copies of the footage. Sent it to the detective, the HOA board, the city code office, and, just for good measure, I uploaded a censored version to Nextdoor with the caption. So, this happened at 2:07 a.m. last night. I guess some people just don't stop. I'd appreciate any witnesses. The reaction was explosive. People were done with her. A woman named Brenda who lived 2 houses down wrote, "This woman screamed at my grandkids last Christmas for singing carols." Another guy said she threatened to report his son for having too many friends over. Then I got an anonymous message from someone who claimed to be Sharon's niece. She wrote, "I don't want to get involved, but my aunt is not well. She's been on medication for years, and when she stops taking it, she goes off the rails. Just be careful. She thinks everyone is after her." It explained a lot. But I didn't care. Mental health or not, she crossed the line. The detective called me the next day. "We're issuing a warrant," he said. I asked, "For what?" "Criminal trespass, vandalism, arson, and harassment." I felt this weird mix of relief and dread. It wasn't over. Not yet. But for the first time since I moved here, I felt like maybe the fight was starting to turn my way. Then something happened that threw everything sideways again. The day before the police were supposed to serve the warrant, someone broke into my house. They didn't steal anything. No money taken, no electronics gone. But my bedroom drawers were opened. My bathroom cabinet was ransacked. And on the mirror, written in soap, "You think this is over?" My front door had no sign of forced entry. But my back sliding door? Unlocked. I always locked it. Always. I checked the camera footage. Nothing. Then I remembered, the side yard camera had glitched the night before. It had gone offline for 6 hours. Battery issue. I checked the camera. The battery had been removed. Deliberately. I called the cops. Again. They sent someone to fingerprint the bathroom. I didn't expect much, but they said they'd test it. The detective called later that day and said, "We're expediting the warrant. You should stay somewhere else for a night or 2. So I did. I packed a bag and stayed at a motel on the other side of town. The whole time, I kept thinking, what is she trying to prove? Why go this far? But then I realized, it wasn't about the fence anymore. It was about control. She saw me as a threat. Maybe she saw every new person as a threat. But she picked the wrong one this time. She thought she could scare me into leaving. Instead, she lit the match that's going to burn everything she has to the ground. 2 days after the break-in, I got a call from the detective again. His tone was serious this time. He told me the fingerprint from the bathroom soap message came back. It was not Sharon's. I froze. Then who was it? I asked. He said, we're still checking, but based on preliminary results, it's a man. We're trying to match it through state databases. I sat there in silence, trying to make sense of it. Why would someone else be involved? That night, I went back through every message, every camera angle, every interaction I had since the fence went up. I wanted to figure out what I missed. Then it hit me. About a month before the fire, a man had come by my house selling yard services. He was in his 40s, long beard, weathered face. Said he worked with Sharon sometimes and was offering to mow lawns, clean gutters, that sort of thing. He kept glancing at the fence while he talked. I told him no thanks and closed the door. I hadn't thought about him since. The next morning, I went to Sharon's house. Her car was gone. The blinds were drawn. I knocked anyway. No answer. I walked to the side gate and looked over. Someone had been back there recently. Fresh boot prints in the dirt. A garden hose left running. But what caught my eye was something shiny in her trash bin. It was a burned pair of sunglasses, aviators, cheap, but something about them looked familiar. I didn't touch anything. I took more pictures. More notes. I decided to go down to the hardware store, the one where Sharon bought the spray paint, and ask a few questions. I showed the clerk a photo of Sharon. He recognized her right away. But then I showed him a printed still from my camera footage, the blurry image of the man in my yard the night the fire started. He leaned forward. Yeah. That guy was with her. They came in together, argued at the checkout. She told him not to touch the paint cans. That was it. That's what I needed. I called the detective again, told him what the clerk said, sent over the time-stamped surveillance picture from my camera. By the end of that week, the police had identified the man. His name was Victor James Malloy, Sharon's ex-boyfriend. He had a record, 2 assaults, a misdemeanor vandalism, and a restraining order filed against him in 2017 by a former landlord. Sharon never mentioned him. No one in the neighborhood had seen him around much. The police now had enough to issue a second warrant for Victor. Here's where things got real. While they were prepping to arrest Sharon and Victor, someone slashed my tires. 4 of them. Middle of the night. Same red paint from the fence sprayed across my windshield. Get out. I couldn't take it anymore. I started sleeping with a crowbar next to my bed. Every shadow outside made my heart race. Then, on a Friday morning, I was woken up by the sound of police radios outside my window. They got her. I watched from my living room as Sharon was handcuffed on her front porch in a bathrobe. She yelled something about being set up, screamed at the officers, then spit in one of their faces. They shoved her into the back of the cruiser. Victor wasn't at her house. They picked him up 2 hours later at a gas station off I-5. He had bolt cutters, 2 bottles of lighter fluid, and a crowbar in his trunk. According to the detective, they'd planned to finish the job that night. Their plan was to burn down my shed and slash through my back fence again, to make a point. But they got caught first. Sharon denied everything, of course. Blamed Victor. Said he acted alone. Claimed she had no idea he was doing this. But then the DA got a copy of their text messages. She was the one who planned it. She told him exactly when to go to my house, where to hide, what to burn, and even where my cameras were. She knew which one glitched that night. She knew I left the back sliding door unlocked sometimes. She even texted him. Make sure he feels it this time. The DA charged both of them. Sharon with conspiracy, harassment, and arson. Victor with attempted arson, trespassing, vandalism, and criminal threat. But I wasn't done. Because that's when I found something else. Something that made everything worse. I was cleaning out my shed, finally ready to rebuild, when I found a crumpled paper wedged behind the shelves. At first I thought it was trash. But when I opened it up, my stomach dropped. It was a printed photo of me. One I didn't take. It showed me in my backyard, hammering one of the fence boards into place. It was taken from Sharon's upstairs window. On the back, in sloppy handwriting, were the words, "Know his routine. Get him alone." This wasn't just property damage. It was a setup. A sick game. And I had only just begun fighting back. After finding that photo, something inside me snapped. This wasn't just a crazy neighbor problem anymore. Sharon and Victor had been watching me, planning, maybe even waiting for a moment to hurt me. That picture, with that message on the back? That was personal. That was real danger. I called the detective and showed him the photo. He didn't even speak for a full 10 seconds. Then he said quietly, "We're adding a charge for stalking." Sharon's bail was denied after that. Victor didn't even get a hearing. He had a prior no-contact order violation, so they held him without bond. Both were sitting in county jail. Now, this should have been where the story ends, right? Cops did their job, bad guys caught, I move on. Nope. Because even from jail, Sharon wasn't done. A week later, I started getting calls from strange numbers. Hang-ups. Sometimes the caller would stay silent for 10 seconds and then whisper something like, "You don't belong here." Or, "Watch your back." I reported it. Police traced one number to a prepaid phone bought 2 weeks earlier by Sharon's sister. A woman who lived in Salem. Now I had to file a restraining order against a woman I never met. That's when I decided, no more defense. No more waiting for the next move. It was time to destroy her life from every angle. I started with her job. Well, former job, technically. She used to work as an administrative assistant for a small private school downtown before she went on disability for her knee. I found the school online and sent them the police reports. I told them she had been involved in planning violent acts and was under arrest for arson and stalking. Turns out, she still received disability checks that were partially tied to her retirement from that job. The school contacted their insurance. The school's lawyers opened a review. Next, I turned to her property. Remember that backyard shed she had? It was built right on the setback line. Way too close to the fence, too tall, and no permits. So I called the City of Eugene's Planning and Development Office. Sent pictures, measurements, and GPS data from Google Earth. The city sent her a violation notice while she was still in jail. And it didn't stop there. I called the county tax assessor. Turns out, she had failed to report the shed's addition on her property tax forms. I filed a formal complaint. They reopened her file. Suddenly Sharon was looking at $9,000 in unpaid taxes, a city-mandated demolition of her shed, permanent loss of disability payments after her behavior triggered a fraud investigation, but the real hammer? I sued her. Not just for the fence. Not just for emotional distress. I sued her for intentional infliction of emotional harm, damages to my property, legal costs, loss of work hours, and personal endangerment. I filed it myself. I backed it up with everything. Photos, police reports, witness statements, the burned fence, the broken window, the stalking photo. At the hearing, she looked like a ghost. No makeup. No smug smirk. Just this empty look, like she finally understood it was all crashing down. She tried to say Victor manipulated her. But then I pulled out the text messages. She was the one giving instructions. The judge didn't even need time to think. He granted me $68,500 in damages. Ordered the sale of her home if she couldn't pay. She had 2 months to get the money. But Victor's name was still on the deed. And guess what? Victor filed a civil countersuit against Sharon from jail. Claimed she pressured him into everything. That she used him, manipulated him. He offered up even more evidence to the court just to save his own skin, including screenshots from an old phone showing Sharon planning to pin the fire on me. One of the texts read, "He used to smoke. I'm going to plant a cigarette butt on the ground. He won't see it coming." Victor ended up with a plea deal, 8 years with parole possible after 4. He testified fully against her in exchange. Sharon? Got 12 years. No parole. Full sentence. State prison. She lost the house. It was auctioned off within 6 months. Guess who bought it? Brenda, the woman Sharon used to yell at for letting her grandkids play outside. Paid cash. Gave it to her daughter who just had twins. As for me? I rebuilt the fence. Stronger, taller, pressure-treated with steel posts. And right in the middle of the back panel, facing where Sharon's window used to be, I mounted a custom metal sign that says, "Private property. No monsters allowed." The sign is framed with the old burned wood I kept from the original fence. The graffiti's still faintly visible under the sealant. I wanted it there. A reminder. People stop by now and ask me what happened. Sometimes I tell them the whole story. Sometimes I just smile and say, "Long story. But justice won." I sleep with the window open now. And sometimes at night, I hear kids playing in Sharon's old yard. Laughing. Singing. Living. And I know, finally, it's over.